It never begins with chaos. Economic collapse starts quietly, almost invisibly, while people are still going to work, buying coffee, and scrolling through their phones. Beneath that normalcy, cracks begin to form. Governments borrow more than they can repay. Businesses expand beyond sustainable demand. Consumers spend money they don't have, fueled by easy credit and the belief that tomorrow will always be better. History shows this pattern again and again, a slow buildup of imbalances masked by temporary growth. The warning signs are rarely dramatic at first, they appear as rising debt, inflated asset prices, or widening inequality. But human psychology plays a powerful role. People ignore risks during good times because fear feels irrational when everything seems to be working. And that's the dangerous part. Economic collapse is not caused by a single event. It's the result of small, ignored vulnerabilities compounding over time, until the system can no longer hold itself together. At the core of most economic collapses lies one simple force: excessive debt. Debt, when used wisely, can fuel growth, innovation, and opportunity. But when it grows faster than the economy itself, it becomes a ticking time bomb. Governments print money to cover deficits, corporations take on leverage to boost profits, and individuals rely on credit to maintain lifestyles they cannot afford. For a while, it works. Growth appears strong, markets rise, and confidence spreads. But debt has a hidden cost, it must eventually be repaid. And when too many players are overleveraged at once, even a small shock can trigger a chain reaction. Interest rates rise, payments become unsustainable, and defaults begin. One failure leads to another. Banks tighten lending, businesses cut jobs, and suddenly the entire system starts contracting. What once looked like prosperity is revealed to be fragile, built on borrowed time rather than real, sustainable value. Another critical driver of economic collapse is asset bubbles, periods when prices rise far beyond their true value. These bubbles are fueled by optimism, speculation, and the powerful human desire to not miss out. Whether it's housing, stocks, or new technologies, people begin to believe that prices will only go up. Early investors make profits, attracting more participants, which pushes prices even higher. This feedback loop creates an illusion of wealth. But bubbles are inherently unstable because they are driven by emotion, not fundamentals. Eventually, reality catches up. It could be rising interest rates, slowing growth, or a sudden loss of confidence. When the turning point arrives, panic replaces optimism. Investors rush to sell, prices collapse, and trillions of dollars in perceived wealth vanish almost overnight. The real damage, however, comes after. The loss of confidence spreads through the economy, freezing investment, reducing spending, and accelerating the downward spiral. Economic collapse is also deeply connected to inequality. When wealth becomes concentrated in the hands of a small percentage of the population, the broader economy weakens. Why? Because economic growth depends on widespread participation. When most people struggle to afford basic goods and services, consumption declines, the very engine that drives many economies. At the same time, those at the top often invest in assets rather than spending in the real economy, further inflating bubbles rather than supporting sustainable growth. This imbalance creates a fragile system where growth looks strong on paper but lacks real stability. Social tensions begin to rise, trust in institutions erodes. And political instability often follows. History has shown that extreme inequality doesn't just create social problems, it amplifies economic ones. When a shock hits, whether financial or geopolitical, the system lacks resilience. Instead of absorbing the impact, it fractures, accelerating the collapse in ways that are difficult to control. Another overlooked cause of economic collapse is policy failure. Governments and central banks play a critical role in maintaining stability, but their decisions can sometimes make things worse. In periods of growth, policymakers may keep interest rates too low for too long, encouraging excessive risk-taking. During downturns, they may act too slowly or implement measures that fail to address the root problems. Political pressures often lead to short-term solutions instead of long-term stability. For example, printing money can temporarily boost the economy, but if overused, it leads to inflation and currency devaluation. Regulations may be loosened to stimulate growth, only to create systemic risks that remain hidden until it's too late. The challenge is that economic systems are incredibly complex, and even well-intentioned policies can have unintended consequences. When multiple policy mistakes compound over time, they don't just weaken the system, they set the stage for a full-scale collapse. Finally, economic collapse is driven by something deeper than numbers: human behavior. Fear and greed are the invisible forces behind every boom and bust cycle. During good times, greed dominates. People take bigger risks, ignore warning signs, and believe they are smarter than the system. But when conditions change, fear takes over just as quickly. Investors panic, consumers stop spending, and businesses cut back aggressively. This sudden shift creates a self-reinforcing cycle. Falling confidence leads to reduced economic activity, which leads to further declines in confidence. It's not just about what happens, it's about how people react to what happens. Markets are not purely rational systems. They are emotional ecosystems. And when collective psychology turns negative, it can accelerate a downturn far beyond what fundamentals alone would justify. In the end, economic collapse is not just a financial event, it's a human one, shaped by the decisions, emotions, and behaviors of millions of people.